the COVID-19 is a hoax. That is why the level of compliance on the lockdown is very low. And in as much as I respect the confidentiality of patients, I want to suggest if the Minister of Health could find a way of maybe concealing the patients, but giving the media a kind of evidence to use for jingles in our local languages, so that those at the grassroots could believe or could be persuaded that the COVID-19 is real, probably by blurring their faces or something, just as we see on the social media done by other countries. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paul Nwachukwu, and I work for Channels Television. My question is to the SGF, and just to clear stories in the social media, I'd like to find out, does the task force collect sitting allowance? If you do, how much per day? Did you travel to Lagos by a chartered flight or one of the from the presidential fleet? Now to the NCDC boss. South Africa is conducting door-to-door testing for the virus. Don't you think that this is an option to flatten the curve of this virus with the newly introduced basket fund? Are you thinking of going that route? Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mitaire Ikben of the NTA. I want to know, what is the NCDC doing to trace all the contacts of the doctor who unfortunately died of the coronavirus in Katsina, and what containment measures is the PTF mooting for the state, considering that its first case is a fatality? Again, we hear that the recovery rate of cases in Senegal is very high, with more than 100 cases said to have recovered and discharged. Is the NCDC or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in touch with the Senegalese authorities to know what treatment is facilitating their recovery rate? And if I would just quickly ask, earlier in the week we learned that a tiger died of the coronavirus somewhere in the US. With this development, is the animal population in Nigeria as endangered as the human population? If so, will it facilitate community transmission of COVID-19? And what interface is the Presidential Task Force having with veterinary doctors in this regard? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, sirs. My name is Juliana Taiwo Balonye. I write for Sun newspapers. Minister of Aviation, sir, 2 pilots have been remanded in Port Harcourt, and their employers are saying they got your approval, the ministry's approval and NCAA approval for them to move. Want to get your reaction to this. If indeed you gave the approval, how are you trying to resolve the issues with Rivers State? DG NCDC, sir, can you clear the air on the Benue State Index case? Was the NCDC involved in confirming the test positive? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amarachi Wanguma, or Voice of Nigeria. And my question comes from the feedback we got from our listeners. Persons with disabilities are saying that the non-establishment of the National Commission of Persons with Disabilities is hindering access to palliative measures to them, knowing that they are the most vulnerable. And they are asking this committee, what plans do you have to ensure that the accessibility of these palliative measures to persons with disabilities? And again, they know that They want to know from the NCDC how many Nigerians with disabilities have tested positive to COVID-19. And I also want to ask this in my local language, Igbo. And ndị nwere arụ nkwarụ n'ala Nigeria, otu jikọta ndị nwere arụ nkwarụ n'ala Nigeria, na-asị na anyị maara ka ọnọdụ ha dị, na ọ bụ ọnọdụ imere ebere, ọnọdụ ndị na-enweghị ike ịgbata ọsọ oge ihe ọsọ ruru. Ha wee na-ajụ sị ka a na-eme ihe a na-ekwu na a na-eke ihe oriri, a na-eke ngwa akọrọngwa dị iche iche maka ụmụ amaala Nigeria n'oge ọnọdụ dị otu a, na o nwere ka esi buru ha n'obi, n'ihi na ụwa niile maara na ihe ọsọ bịa na ha agaghị enwewe ike ịgba ọsọ. Nke ọzọ were bụrụ na ha chọrọ ịma na kemgbe ọrịa bidoro n'ala Nigeria, o nwee na ndị nwere nkwarụ wetagoro ọrịa. Ndewo. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, members of the PTF. My name is Yemi Adebayo from AIT. I just have two questions, and the first one is, last week, the Minister of Health did say that the Chinese doctors, alongside the medical equipment we're expecting from China, are to arrive in Nigeria in a matter of a few days. I want to know, are this equipment on ground? Because there are reports on social media now that the doctors have arrived in the country. I want to know if that is true or not. Then the second question is for the NCDC Director General. I want to find out from you, have you given states express approval to announce any positive case of coronavirus in your states? You discover that Kwara and Oyo state governors, perhaps the state governments, will go ahead and announce the cases, and some state governments are also following this trend. I want to find out if NCDC has indeed given approval to states to confirm whether they have a case of coronavirus or not. Thank you very much.
Good day, sirs, members of the PTF and my colleagues. My name is Femi Akonde. I'm a reporter with TVC News. Sir, we know that this novel coronavirus, the SGF, sir, the novel coronavirus has a ripple effect on almost all spheres of human existence. And we hear France's economy has gone into recession, sir. We would like to know the state of Nigeria's economy. We also know that the president has, in a proactive move, set up this economic sustainability committee. Maybe once a week, if we can have one of them come to tell us the state of Nigeria's economy, because Nigerians want to know and they are concerned. And sir, quickly, second question to the DG of NCDC and maybe the Minister of Health. It seems your visit to Lagos made you get a clearer picture of the work health workers are doing in helping contain this coronavirus. We would want to know, I don't know if it would maybe breach the confidentiality you talk about I think, revealing the identity of patients. Do we have health workers who have been infected or who have tested positive for the coronavirus? Thank you.
The Chairman, Honorable Ministers, DG, my colleagues. My name is Amaka Ude. I report for Arise TV. And my question really is for the National Coordinator as well as the Chairman. Yes, especially for the National Chairman. Since you announced the reduction of the time that people go to the market, that is when we actually observe that more people are on the streets. So is there a plan of reviewing that protocol as it concerns going to the market? Because social distancing is a major issue, and this needs to be looked at. And also to the DG of the NCDC, well, I did forward a video to you. It is a video that I find quite disturbing. It's a video of a governor in this country who says, if you wear a face mask, you don't have to adhere to the social distancing protocol. So I want to get your reaction to that video. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. SGF. Good afternoon, Honorable Ministers, DG, and my colleague, Rachel from News Agency of Nigeria. My question is to the SGF. So I don't know if the federal government is considering other method of distributing relief materials in order to avoid a breach of the social distancing. And I would like to also know the impact of lockdown to other medical emergencies. My next question is for the DG NCDC. Sir, please, can you describe the process that scientists in the National Reference Laboratory and the other 9 or 8 testing lab have gone through in terms of training that other Nigerian scientists may not have? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, sir, the honorable ministers, and my fellow colleagues. My name is Abiodun Oloyede-Popola from Voice of Nigeria. I would like to first ask in English before I will ask in Yoruba. My first question is about the healthcare workers. Surely we appreciate what they are doing. Is the government having any palliatives for these health workers? Then secondly, I want to ask about the Lagos State and Ogun State for the benefit of our listeners at home. There are complaints of being partisan about the sharing of the palliatives. What can we say about this? Then about Kwara State, there are 2 cases of death. We have not heard much about this issue. They were buried in Ofa, and we don't really know what is really happening there. Some people were there. Then also, Oyo State Governor was able to be cured, and he mentioned that he was cured with carrot, black seed, and so on and so forth. What can we say about this? Ní Yorùbá ní kúkúrú, màá fẹ́ kí mínísítà fún ètò abẹ́rẹ́ kan bá mi sáré dáhùn àwọn ìbéèrè yìí. Wọ́n ní kí n dúpẹ́ gidi lọ́wọ́ yín fún àwọn bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe ń dáhùn ìbéèrè yìí. Pàtàkì àwọn elétò ìlera, kí ni ìjọba ń ṣe láti ṣe àmójútó wọn? Èkejì, ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó àti ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn, wọ́n rí pé kùdìẹ̀kudiẹ wà bí wọ́n ṣe ń pín àwọn ohun èlò fún àwọn ènìyàn. Ìkẹta, nípa ti ìpínlẹ̀ Kwara, wọ́n ní pé ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ méjì ti ṣẹlẹ̀, àdẹ̀tí ìgbọ̀n kankan nípa rẹ̀. Wọ́n ti wá sọ pé gómìnà ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ wọ́n sọ wípé wọ́n rí ìwòsàn gbà nípa àwọn nǹkan tí a kà sílẹ̀ yìí. Kí la lè sọ nípa ẹ ṣeun lọ́pọ̀lọpọ̀.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, members of the PTF committee. My name is Musa Aminu Dambo. I report for Voice of Nigeria Hausa Service. I have one question from the listeners and viewers. They want to find out from the members of the committee that some people are asking for their VVN. Is the committee aware? So I want to ask in Hausa. Yes. Masu kallonmu da sauraronmu suna buƙatar su sani idan wannan kwamiti yana da masaniyar cewa ko kuma shi yasa a ansa nambobi na VVN na mutane da sunan za a tura musu kuɗaɗe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have taken all the questions. They have been directed at the Honorable Minister of State for Health, the DG NCDC, the Honorable Minister of Aviation, Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Honorable Minister of Interior, the National Coordinator, and the Secretary to Government of the Federation. We shall begin with the Honorable Minister of State for Health.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think just about 2 questions that are really referred to me. The one by Yemi Adebayo, AIT, wanting to know about the consignment in terms of support for our country, Nigeria, from China. To the best of my knowledge, the consignment will arrive this evening. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Hanire, is not here. He is presently at the airport awaiting this because it's going to be presented with top officials of the Chinese government. So, to the best of my knowledge, nothing came in before that. This consignment will arrive this evening. And I think just the last journalist, that's Oluyede, I guess, asking about what you could call home remedy or herbal treatment. Well, again, I'm not aware of what the treatment protocol His Excellency the Governor of Oyo State had to test said negative after being treated. I'm not even aware of where he was treated, but we will need that information to be able to make a categorical statement. But having said that, we do know that since this COVID-19 outbreak it came, I got a lot of telephone calls from various people laying claims to having some remedy. But because we have in the Ministry of Health the Department of Traditional, Complementary and Alternative Medicine, what I did was to refer such to that department, to the director, who will invite them, and then in collaboration with the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development, do a kind of assessment. And of course, there is a protocol for clinical trial. Somebody cannot just come up laying claim to certain remedies without being through the usual or the standard protocol before we say that this remedy will cure or will assist or will help in the management of COVID-19. So I'm saying in effect that up to this point in time, we are not sure, or we cannot categorically say that this herbal medicine will do this or do that. But that is not to say that our people don't have a way. You recall that the bulk of our people who live in the rural areas, their primary port of call still remains traditional medicine in terms of seeking treatment and other remedies for their ailments. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The first question was whether COVID-19 is a hoax. I think anyone really asking that question at this point so many families have lost very dear ones, people very close to them. There hasn't been an outbreak in my lifetime that has played out in real time as much as this one has. We've been in touch with many of these patients. Myself, the Honorable Minister has called many of them himself. This is not a hoax. If patients want to talk about their experience, it's really up to them. It's not us as government to push any patient to speak about their experience of an illness. I noticed on social media today that one or two of those that have been discharged have been speaking about their experience. If you want to hear from them, I encourage you to reach out and let them decide whether they want to share their stories with the press. But it will be inappropriate for me or for any member of this government to ask patients to share their experience with the press or with anyone else. It's completely their decision to do so. On the question on testing, there will be many lessons learned from this outbreak. One of the most important ones in the long term is to build up our laboratory architecture. But the honest truth is we cannot do it overnight. We're working as hard as we can. The strategy, South Africa, and I worked there for 3 years, has a national laboratory service. It's fairly well developed. They have a private lab, medical lab architecture that is fairly well developed. 70% of the tests in South Africa, as I understand, have been done in the private sector. So they've been able to mobilize their existing private sector laboratory services to come and support the public sector. Unfortunately, we don't have that level of sophistication right now existing that we can simply mobilize to do this. This is the reality that we have to change collectively. So as I speak, I also challenge all of us, state governments across the country, let us work together to build this architecture that we need well into the future. A lot of the things you see drive-through testing, it doesn't mean that the test is happening there. The samples are collected and then taken to the labs. So it's an absolute priority for us right now, and we're working across board to increase the throughput of our testing, and with some of the efforts being put in by government, both to convert some of the TB machines, gene expert machines used for TB diagnosis, and some of the high throughput machines for HIV diagnosis. But those will not happen overnight. Earliest dates for that 3rd week of April, 4th week of April, we'll be able to get to the stage where we're doing that. But we're working very hard now to increase our testing capacity across the country. There was a colleague with 4 questions. One was around the gentleman that just passed away from Katsina. You know I will not discuss the individual circumstances around that. And actually, this death just happened yesterday, so even if I had the information, we are still in the process of working that through, validating some of the processes, identifying all the contacts, validating them, following up. All that is work happening today. In fact, as we speak, our team is just on the way to Katsina, even though we've started communicating with them. So I can't answer specifics on that. On the circumstances in Senegal, the West Africa Health Organization, actually one of the most important developments since the last Ebola outbreak in Africa is the growth of, one, the Africa Center for Disease Control, and secondly, the strengthening of the West Africa Health Organization. Because what it has done is bring us together in Africa. So we have teleconferences frequently to share experiences. So we have one recently with, we have one weekly across West Africa, organized by the West Africa Health Organization. Through that, we share experiences. It's too early to analyze what is happening in each country in terms of why it is happening, because you need numbers, and unfortunately, we don't want those numbers. But that is how you really get to the answers. So we share experience, so we are in touch with colleagues in Senegal. We are studying what their situation are, and we also share our own. And in fact, one of the areas that lots of African countries have learned from us is the website that we have where all our documents have been stored. No other country has developed something like that, and they've been very grateful that we've shared our guidelines with everyone to download themselves, adapt to their own context, and use. On the report on COVID-19 in an animal, I saw that too. It's too early to know whether that's a coincidental finding or whether that has any real relevance for transmission. Because the importance of such a finding is, does it have an impact on human health, i.e. is that animal a host or helps transmission of the virus among populations, or are animals dying off from it? So none of those have been shown. So at the moment, it's just that one report that we have to go on. There's a question on the case in Benue. The only thing I can confirm is yes, the test was done in one of our labs. There's nowhere else you can do the test at the moment, and we stand by the results of that test within the limits of any microbiology test. None of them is 100%. The Honourable Minister has commented on remedies. We should remember that 90% of these patients recover without any intervention. So if you take something and say you recovered, and that something is why you recovered, it doesn't quite add up. So hopefully there will be some treatments emerging over the next few years. But remember that people recover from many viruses. That's the way it happens. There are very few viruses with a cure. Even the ones that have a bad outcome, like Lassa fever, 20% of patients that die from it, it still means that 80% of patients will recover without any treatment per se. What happens is the body is supported to recover on its own. So you go to a hospital, you're given, for COVID, you're given oxygen. Oxygen is not really a treatment. It's to keep you alive for long enough for you to recover yourself. I haven't watched, Amaka, I haven't watched the video you mentioned about face masks. And as you know, we are considering a policy statement on face masks. That policy statement is currently being considered by the PTF before release. However, what I can already say for sure, the face mask alone will not stop transmission. Even if we were to recommend the use of face masks, broader use of face masks, we will recommend it in addition to physical distancing, to personal hygiene, to respiratory hygiene. It will add one additional tool to the already existing and recommended efforts to keep ourselves separate from each other. So there is no magic bullet here, and I can say that with confidence even without watching the video. But I will watch that video and respond to it specifically, because we all have a responsibility to give out correct messages. And no one has that responsibility more than our governors. And that also brings me to the question about the reporting of results of individuals. And we are really appealing to our leaders across the country. Please let the experts do the reporting. Nobody should reveal the identity of a patient, even if it's the first patient in your state. Please do not reveal the identity of a patient, the circumstances, whether he's a doctor or not. We don't need all of that. This is a virus. They haven't committed an offense. They haven't done anything wrong. We have to be empathic. We have to show empathy towards all our patients. That is what we sign up to as healthcare workers. So I really appeal to our political leaders to follow the lead of this PTF. You'll never see the chair talking about the history of any individual patient. So a lot of credit to him, and take that example in the States and let us say what we should say. And many of the commissioners know how to communicate this thing. But once it's taken over by our political leadership, sometimes, and none of this is ill-intentioned, it's just not understanding the ethics and norms of the medical practice and of public health. Finally, on the question around, so there are two more questions on training of lab scientists. I know there's been a lot of chatter around this. Lab scientists are the biggest single profession of people working in the NCDC. There's no other profession that has there are more people working in NCDC than medical lab scientists. The truth, however, is not just the techniques of what medical lab scientists do. It's the ability to work in a biosafety environment. When you're working with infectious diseases, there's an added level of training that is required. The truth is that level of training is not available in any of our teaching hospitals. So nobody comes to NCDC ready to work. They come ready to be trained. We then spend sometimes several months preparing them to work safely. To work safely means not just doing it, but making sure you are not infected by the viruses that you're working on. So when I say that everybody requires some extra level of training, you have to have had the opportunity of working in a biosafety environment for you to work on this new virus. And that is what we do. So we cannot bring in 100 volunteers and throw them into the lab. We have to enable them. And so we have recruited 10 ad hoc staff in the last week. We will recruit more to support the response, but we cannot recruit hundreds of people at the same time. We recruit a few, we train them, they join the workforce, we start training a bit more, and that's the process that we've been undertaking. In terms of persons living with disability, as far as I know, I don't think there's been anyone yet. To be honest, the clinical details of each individual patient is not my responsibility. I manage the public health response. The clinicians manage each individual patient, but I am also not sure that they will be open to discussing the physical well-being or mental well-being of any of our patients. But these are important questions that we'll get to at the end. And just a final point in Igbo, ndị nwere ọrụ enwebeghị nke ọbụla anyị ma, enwebe onye ọbụla anyị ma n'ime ndị nwere ọrịa kita kama anyị ga na-eleba anya n'ime ajụjụ a ma anyị na-aga n'ihu. So thank you very much. I just answered the question on disabilities, people living with disability in Igbo. Thank you very much.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, regarding the question that has been asked, the arrest of pilots in Port Harcourt, whether we give them approval to fly. Civil aviation is on exclusive list, item number 3 there. So no other person but the federal government has authority to legislate upon. So also the Nigeria Air Force, part of armed forces, is also on exclusive list. There's no other person but the federal government that has the legal right to legislate upon. So the Air Force officer who jumped the commander-in-chief and ignored, who also jumped the chief of defense staff and ignored, who jumped the chief of air staff and ignored, to call a governor to come into the property of the federal government belonging to Nigeria Air Force to make an arrest, has exhibited dangerous ignorance and incompetence grossly. So the police that followed the governor also to go in there has also exhibited dangerous ignorance from our perspective in civil aviation. Whether we gave approval for the flight, yes, we did. And we did in national interest. All of those flights are for the purposes of improving the national revenue, to which Rivers State is the greatest beneficiary. So those flights, by Caverton, by Aero Contractors, by ARIC, by Bristol, and couple more, were for national interest and improved national revenue. At a time when oil has gone below $30 and the cost of production is $30, in the wisdom of President Muhammadu Buhari, he thought that this be allowed, even in this national pandemic, so that the nation will not be crippled and national revenue will not be lost. It's against this background that we had the authority, and being it exclusively on the exclusive list, and we had the powers in civil aviation, guided by Civil Aviation Act 2006, approved such flights. So those flights were approved lawfully, legally, and correct. So, yes, we will do everything lawful and legal and reasonable to get those pilots back, and the operations will continue in national interest. Thank you.
Honorable Minister of Information and Culture.
I believe most of the questions that were directed to me have been answered by the various ministers. But the one that I think I want to take on is the issue of the sitting allowance of $500,000 naira paid to each member of the committee. You remember, every time I come here, since I tested negative for coronavirus, my other major problem is fake news. As soon as I got that information, I consulted with my colleagues here whether I am not a member of the task force. And I asked them whether they've received their own. And they said no. But you see, what bothers me is that since about 2 o'clock this afternoon, I've been receiving text messages to send money to people, that they were broke, they had no money. And I begin to wonder, why today? Apparently they are acting on these fake news that we receive $500,000 naira every day. The truth of the matter is that no member of the committee has received 1 penny, either for sitting or sleeping allowance. Not even when we went to Lagos yesterday. So you see, and this fake news is aimed at one thing and one thing alone, to distract the government from the more serious problem and task of containing and combating fake news. I want to say loud and clear, no member of the committee receives a penny as sitting allowance. Everybody sacrifices his time, his energy, and even sometimes his resources. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister of Interior.
Well, I must greet all Nigerians. The one I'm going to talk about is food distribution in Lagos. The first phase has been concluded. From the information gathered in Lagos yesterday, the government is about to set on the second phase. I want to believe they are going about it very, very well. From my own interrogation or interaction with people, I discovered that there is a gross misunderstanding. Is it misjudgment on the part of a section of the population on how far can this thing go? And I felt I should do some analysis to throw light on this area. Let's take 1 billion naira. How many Nigerians could 1 billion naira serve? Because it's important we elucidate on this to inform people about their expectations. 1 billion naira will go round the following people in this order. If we are to give 1,000 naira to deserving Nigerians, 1 billion naira will serve only 1 million naira, 1 million people. If you are to give 1,000 naira to people, 1 billion naira could only serve 1 million people. However, if you are to make it 1,500, 1 billion naira will serve 667,666 people. If it is 2.5, if I give 2,500 naira, only 400,000 Nigerians will get 2,500 naira. So, if this is the case, we can only therefore approximate how many Nigerians or Lagosians can really benefit from what is going around. That does not mean effort will not be made to get to as many vulnerable, indigent people as possible. The government has assured us that it will do everything in its power to reach far and wide. But the analysis I've made is just to let us realize that there is a limit to what can be done. And I'm impressed, or we are all impressed, at the task force level, at the presidency level, and at the federal government level, and at all governments level, about the enthusiasm of the Nigerian people and their commitment to relieve the burden on the vulnerable and indigent citizens. I've seen Nigerians in their various ways rising up to support those who could not feed themselves. We must encourage this as we are thanking all those who are doing such things. We are in a difficult moment, a moment that calls for sacrifice, patriotism, and commitment from all. As a matter of fact, I was discussing with somebody, and I told that person that we do not really appreciate very deeply what is happening. An invasion of a nation can only happen progressively from the point of invasion, and if there's no check, and there must be check anyway by any serious nation, progressively, that is one step after the other. This is an invasion that, though not visible, is occurring simultaneously on every street, in every home. We must therefore appreciate what it is we are up against. And I want to quote the SDF, chairman of the Presidential Task Force. He said something that COVID-19 is not only attacking our health, it's attacking our wealth. And he said something which he has been repeating. That COVID-19 is the most important public health emergency in our generation. If you all approach it from this point, or from this perspective, to be clear to us that everybody must rise up to it and do whatever we can to support the government and support ourselves and our people. Yorùbá nǹkan tí mo sọ, òun ni wípé ohun tó ń wà nílẹ̀ yìí kò ń ṣẹrù ẹnìkan o. Gbogbo wa ni a ní ìdààmú yìí. Tá a bá dẹ̀ fẹ́ kó kásẹ̀ ńlẹ̀, àyàfi kí gbogbo wa ká gbárùkù tì o. COVID-19 ò ní gbé wa lọ. Àwa la máa borí ẹ̀, ẹ ṣé o.
Coordinator.
Thank you. I think I have only one or two questions, but before I go on, I just wanted to reiterate what the DG NCDC say. Those that deny the existence of coronavirus disease or the current pandemic are being disingenuous, but it's even more harmful to society when you start claiming that certain treatments work, or if you start, when people start advising the public not to take the precautions that have been recommended by the scientific community to protect themselves. In China, when the pandemic happened, they had about 80-something thousand people infected, 92% fully recovered. So they could have been taken kola nut every day and claim that kola nut was what was responsible for them getting better. But the fact is the majority will get better. So it doesn't matter what you take, you will get better. With regards to Senegal, I had a look at the data. So Senegal have 244 cases now, and they had 2 deaths. Nigeria had 254 and had 6 deaths. It's really too early to say whether those figures are any different. We're still very early on in the epidemic, just like Senegal is. And then there was a question about more people are on the streets since we announced changes to the timing. Yes, we are reviewing this regularly. You probably noticed that here in the FCT, I think the police have become even more strict in the last few days when it comes to restricting movement. But as I've always said, this is a joint effort. We cannot do this alone. Even though we are advising people, and to certain extents we will enforce some of the changes for the public good. We still expect people to cooperate with us and be sensible and keep themselves safe and their loved ones. Is government having any palliatives for our healthcare workers? Well, all I can say is our biggest asset, as far as the PTF is concerned, is not the commodities we have coming into the country. No, it's our healthcare workers. And we have to do everything we can to make sure that we protect them and to make sure that they are incentivized to work in order to save the lives of our citizens. And we will continue to commit to this. Health is on the concurrent list, but we're already speaking to state governments, as I said, regarding health insurance, etc., and life insurance, I mean, and we'll continue to work with other partners to make sure that our health sector staff are well compensated for. Thank you.
We will now take the chairman of the Presidential Task Force, the SGF.
This thing is doing me one kind. Yeah, whether it's being affected by coronavirus.
Just drag it with 2 hands. Yeah.
Truly, I just want to read a post that Dr. Sani sent to the PTF COVID-19 WhatsApp in my attempt to answer the question that a lot of people think coronavirus is a hoax. It's been disclosed. I mean, there's a post on somebody's Facebook page, but I will read it so that I can drive home a certain point. That at this point, a lot of people like the DG Center for Disease Control rightly alluded to have lost loved ones. And he has spoken to a lot of families whose loved ones are either infected and undergoing treatment, or they have lost loved ones. So my appeal is that at this moment, let our spirit of humanity guide our utterances and our conduct. Probably when you hear this, when you listen to this post, it will help you in even pushing the message out there. This is somebody that posted today. He said, today at approximately 7:30 a.m., my dad died of coronavirus. He has been fighting the virus for 2 weeks, but he could not fight it anymore. The NHS, which is the British medical system, were amazing and did everything they could. My dad was a living legend, worked for the NHS for nearly 40 years, saving people's lives here and in Africa. And I confirmed from Dr. Sani that this man was a lecturer in the Faculty of Medicine in Ahmadu Bello University's area. Up until he got sick, he was still working part-time, saving people. The coronavirus is not a joke. Please take it seriously and listen to the government. Please stay safe and protect your loved ones. Nothing is more important. Listening to this, I think we've gone past the stage. However ignorant a person is, wherever you live in Nigeria, for you to begin to assume that this is a scam, a hoax, or a joke. And I think those of you in the media have a responsibility of driving this point, that this is not a joking matter. We've gotten to the stage where we are beginning to see some of the things that are happening in other climes. So we ought to take it with every element of seriousness. And for those that think it's a hoax or a scam, I wish them well. But for those of us that believe that we have to do everything humanly possible to contain this spread and limit infection and mortality, we will continue to work day and night. And that is why I solicit your support and your cooperation in this particular endeavor. The second question has to deal with sitting allowances and how we travel to Lagos. Sitting allowances in the governments of different, either the states or the federation, are guided by certain extant rules and regulations. Some of you, before you ventured into media, if it's a private media you work for, if you still work for government media, you know that there are extant rules. that guide the payment of sitting allowances if you serve in committees or commissions or task force. But let me say upfront, I saw the post where somebody was alleging that the federal government has withdrawn $150 million, and out of which they are paying the committee members of the task force 500,000 daily as sitting allowance. Let me say, as the chairman of this committee, since we started functioning as the committee, we've not received a dime, either by way of even operational costs, talk less of sitting allowances. And like I said, sitting allowances are matters of regulation. They are there in the public service rules and regulations. It will be applied when the need arises, when funds are available. But to allege that members of this committee have started receiving 500,000 a day, how many days have we sat now? No wonder you are getting text messages, because the people in your constituencies are assuming that you are fully loaded. I beg, save us that agony. We don't have to go through that. But people barraging us and bombarding us with requests based on a speculative post that this is what we receive. These gentlemen and ladies that are on the committee are honorable people. They know the difficult times in which we operate. This cabinet has sacrificed half of its salary already as their own modest support towards the fight against COVID-19. I don't think they would indulge in such a thing. Yes, the economies of the world would suffer. There is no doubt about it. And recovery will not be tomorrow or next tomorrow. For all of us that understand the dynamics of world economies, you know that we are in for a long haul. And it's true, I saw in the news that the French economy has gone into recession. We have not gone into recession yet. And our president is a very proactive man. As he was setting up this task force, he knew that our economy would be affected adversely. He set up another committee headed by the Minister of Finance and Budget and National Planning. That is the Committee on Economy, to look at the impact of COVID-19. In addition to that, they have made several recommendations. He still went ahead to ask his vice president to chair another committee, which is the Economic Sustainability Committee, all in an attempt to have a holistic picture of the adverse effect of COVID-19 on the Nigerian economy. And how do we keep the wheels of our economy running? How do we create sustainability? Because there is life after COVID-19, and we must plan for it and plan adequately. So all in all, if you look at in context, everything that has been put in place is to ensure that we do not suffer adversely in our health and in our wealth, so that at the end of the day, Nigeria will come out much stronger and much determined and resolute in dealing with the affairs of our nation. The other question has to deal with, how did we travel? Channels. The fact of the matter, in a state of emergency like this, I can even impound your aircraft if you have one, if I have need to go to Lagos. We have a Nigerian Air Force. Their business is flying. They have planes. We've asked them to go to Lagos to move drugs to Abuja. Even this afternoon, I had requested the Chief of Air Staff to dispatch an aircraft to Lagos, because we have received certain consignment that were supposed to have been dropped here from Turkey that were dropped off in Lagos, to be brought to the storage facility that we have here, the central stores of the Federal Ministry of Health, so that it can be equitably accounted for, transparently, and distributed for the good and use of our people. So we have aircrafts in our Nigerian Air Force. They have, and the Chief of Air Staff has been rehabilitating several. We'll put them to use during this time of emergency. And I can assure you that if we have to go to Sokoto tomorrow, if we don't have a plane from the Nigerian Air Force, if you have one, we will impound it and use it to go to Sokoto. Other ways of distributing palliatives so that we do not breach the social distancing policy that we have been advancing. It's very true. The first experience of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, she was here. She acknowledged the fact that it became very difficult to control the people. I believe that she must be in placing a plan that will help her in trying to make sure that in the process of giving palliatives, you do not endanger the health of the people that are supposed to be beneficiaries. But even this afternoon, we spoke about it. We took a report from that ministry, and they have assured us they are putting so many processes in place. Our banking system does not get to every nook and cranny of our country. And the processes of payment through the banks have been looked at. So it's a combination of payment through the bank and also table payment with regards to disbursement of cash. But we try to do the best we can to ensure that it's transparent and the elements of accountability come into play. Asking for your BVN, this is share 419. Even in the midst of this pandemic, some people who want to play and exploit the ignorance of a lot of people so that they can defraud them. Please advise the Nigerian populace not to disclose or release any information of a personal status like a BVN, or asking for your credentials, asking for all sorts of information. All is intended to have access to your small savings, in spite of the fact that everybody is faced with the current challenges. So this is sheer work of fraudsters, and as much as possible, we should discourage it. Thank you very much. Well, we have not shut down the hospitals. The hospitals are there. The pharmaceutical shops are there. All facilities that have to deal with the hospitals are some of the institutions that are being exempted from the lockdown. So you can access the hospital if you have any need to go. Though as much as possible all over the world, people are being advised, except if it is a very dire situation, stay off from the hospitals for now. All over the world, that's the advice. That's the advice. This is not the time to walk into the hospital because you don't know the kind of patients that are coming. And you wouldn't want to take something home that you didn't bring to the hospital. So the counsel is that even that, if it is not a serious matter, in other jurisdictions and climes, even where there have been scheduled appointments for surgeries, they've been put off. Because all the countries are dealing with situations that they cannot combine with routine visits to your doctor and to the hospitals. So as much as possible, our advice is that except if it is a serious ailment that you cannot endure or you have not received prescriptions for, then you go to the hospital. But as much as possible, at this moment, it is even advisable that you stay away from unnecessary visits to the hospital. I hope I've answered that.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of today's national briefing. Before we go, we must thank our partner media houses and our colleagues for keeping faith and attending this national briefing every day. We must also thank NAPTIP for providing the sign language. The messages coming out of today's briefing are this. One, COVID-19 is real. It is the most important public health emergency of our generation. Please stay home, keep social distance, and maintain personal hygiene. Stay safe, protect your loved ones. By the grace of God, we shall see you here tomorrow at 2 p.m. God bless you all. Thank you.